and Brad
Brad
Gosse.
Gosse.
Misfits on vinyl for me. Fuck John Cougar!
Hello and welcome to another episode of Misfits on Vinyl. My name is Spencer Streichert. I'm an actor, comedian, and one of your tits.
My name is Aaron. I am also a tit. Possibly the biggest one in the room right now in the Zoom meeting.
I believe so. You're really you're the udder. You're the udder of the group because you're utterly adorable. All
Thank
right.
you.
And today we're a tri-tit again. I'm very excited for this episode that we have right now. You know him from TikTok, from Instagram. He's an author and a comedian, and I'm so excited to bring him on. It is Mr. Brad Gosse. How are you doing today, Brad?
I'm fantastic. I identify as a nipple.
Hell yeah.
My pronouns are nip/slip.
Janet Jackson style.
That's great. Okay, so I wanted to first thing before we get into anything else. I think it's funny because there's someone that is a big fan of our podcast who has been a big fan of you and who introduced me to you on social media. And that is Julie, the bartender from Tea House, which some people that have listened to the podcast know about Julie. Julie's awesome, comedian as well, but she sent me a bunch of your videos, and this was probably like 2 years ago. This was when you just started releasing the videos of you going into chat rooms and reading people these hilarious children's books. What kind of gave you the idea to start going into chat rooms and showing people your books?
I like talking to strangers. And so it was pretty easy. And I did it. I actually started doing that in 2020. So about 4 years ago during the pandemic. And, there were no stand-up comedy clubs to perform at the time. And I thought, this would be a good way to generate some content, get some reactions to my comedy, do a bit of, pseudo crowd work. And it just went so well the first time I did it. And the amount of content that I was able to generate from doing that was so amazing that I'm like, I could do this, a couple times a week. And so for quite a while, that's what I did. I just, did it over. Like, the great thing is that when you're a comedian and you tell jokes, usually you get one shot. You tell the joke, you post it on social media. If you post it again, your followers are like, "What are you doing?" Right? But if I post the same joke 100 times, but with 100 different people reacting to it, my audience continues to enjoy it. And even though they know the punchlines that are coming, they're watching to see the person react. So it really allowed me to recycle the same amount of jokes that would normally only mean a certain, a small number of videos into a huge number. And so sometimes the same joke, might not go viral, the first 10 times, but then you get the right person reacting to it and it just blows up. So I'm able to do it over and over again, which I like.
Well, and that's something interesting that you brought up, is that because you're really the part that's the funniest in the video, and what really makes it stand apart is that sometimes the reactions are just so insane. So
Yeah.
you are able to keep doing that. And like me as a fan, I'm watching and I'm like, oh shit, I can't wait until this person gets to like page 4 of Flip Flop, the racist horse cop,
Right,
Like- But what have you found to be like, is there kind of a secret formula that's worked for you with it, or has it been that you've come across people in these chat rooms where you've went, oh, maybe they're really not going to enjoy this?
There's no secret formula. It is just, it is a game of spray and pray. And see what happens. And the reactions are always unique. They're always unexpected. And it's really just a game of volume for me. Like I've put up videos where I think, oh, this one's average and it'll get millions of views. And then I put up videos I think this one's hilarious and it gets, thousands of views. So there's no, like, I don't even know when I pull the slot machine of social media, what's going to happen?
Yeah, that's something that I've noticed a lot of people, like a lot of comedians that end up doing TikTok have all said the same thing where they go, "Yeah, I wasn't expecting this one video to blow up."
Right.
Um,
It's the same with my books. You know, I have like 150 books published, and I can tell you that, you know, the books that are my best sellers were unexpected. I did not see them coming out as bestsellers. I was, you know, my best-selling book is called Mike Hunt Smells Like Fish, and you know, it's a new twist on an old joke, right? It's just
Yeah.
it's a guy named Mike, and it's all double entendres, and when I published that book, I had no expectation of it being my best-selling book. It was, you know, my 121st book, and it blew up all my entire catalog. It blew up my sales, all from one single book.
Are
wow.
you self-publishing these, Brad, or did you pitch it to like a publishing house? Because I'm curious if you had to pitch it, how it went. Uh,
I have um I have been ghosted by every publishing company and every literary agent in North America. Um, I I have not I've had publishing companies reach out to me, like big top 5 publishing companies reach out to me and they're like, "We want to be in the Brad Gosse business. You know, how can we get into the Brad Gosse business?" And I'm like, "Well, here's my catalog and here's what's selling really well." And they're like, "We've decided it's not going to be a fit for us." And I'm like, "Okay, you know,
Yeah.
that's cool too." So I self-publish
Nice.
everything, and which is great for me because I'm not giving up the rights. I have full control over everything I own. I can pull it back anytime I want. I can, you know, I own all the copyright. I own all the royalties. I don't have to, you know, every publishing company that I've talked to, because they see the numbers and they're like, "Oh, we want in with this guy." And then they always kind of come back with, "Well, if we do work with you, you're going to have to take a pay cut. And if we work with you, you know, we're going to need to take your book off the shelf for a year. And if we work with you," and I'm like, "You guys are dinosaurs. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, why
Mhm.
would I take a book that's selling 1,000 copies a day off the shelf for you to drag your feet on an advance that's like a quarter of what I'm making? Like, forget it." So, you know, it just makes sense for me to keep self-published at this stage.
Yeah.
Well, and how did you kind of find the process of like self-publishing, like from the start? Like, how did you kind of? I'm really interested into like how you got into writing these books to begin with, but also the you know, anybody can write a book or create something, but then getting it out there is a whole nother thing. So, what was kind of the process of discovering the best way to self-publish?
Um, I I I've always kind of had a knowledge about this stuff. I wrote my first self-published book in 2012,
Oh
and
wow.
I published it through Amazon. It was a humor book, but it was a business book because I wasn't a comedian at the time. Um, and I published a book. It's not available anymore, but it was called Chronic Marketer: Confessions of a Highly Paid but or a high paid something. I can't remember the subtitle, but it was a cartoon of me smoking a joint on the cover. And basically it was a book for pothead entrepreneurs, which was a demographic nobody had ever touched. And by creating that genre, I was able to build a huge audience of these people that nobody was talking to, and it really worked out well for me. And I published it directly with Amazon, which at the time was called Create Space, their self-publishing wing, which is now called KDP. And I published it directly with them and became a bestseller the day I launched it because I did all the marketing and I did all the push behind it. And so I had a knowledge of self-publishing. And then when I sold my business and decided to become a comedian full time, um, I was just doing TikTok videos and I was just doing, you know, I was just playing around with comedy. But I hadn't really built an audience or anything. And I'm a graphic designer, so I designed a mock book cover for my first book, which was called Why Daddy Hits Mommy: A Kid's Guide to Understanding Alcoholism. And I went on TikTok and I said, you know, "My name is Brad Gosse. I write books for children, but my publisher keeps rejecting my submissions. Why do you think they rejected this?" And then flash the cover. There was no book. It wasn't available. And that video got 1.5 million views.
Wow.
Fuck.
And I read the comments, and the comments were all saying, "Read it to us. Why can't we want to see this book?" And so I wrote it, And when I wrote it, I still didn't publish it. And I just held up a printed out copy of the book cover and I read the poem, this Dr. Seuss style, poem to the audience. And that got like 1 million views. And all the comments were the same. Where's the pages? Show us the book. Why can't we buy it? And that's when the light went off. I'm like, I know how to do this. So I quickly illustrated the book with clip art. Like I just, like I just shat it out as fast as possible. And I published it on Amazon. And then the very next time I showed it on TikTok, I had the book in hand and I could flip through the pages like a teacher. You're sitting in a semicircle, crisscross applesauce. Let's do this. And I would read the book to you. And then at the end, I show the cover and I say, Why Daddy Hits Mommy's available on Amazon. And then boom, I saw the sales come in. They weren't huge, but it was enough for me to say that, okay, there's something here.
That's amazing. So have you, because there's a few things like that you mentioned there, like you decided to pursue comedy full time a couple of years ago and like really, go for it. And I saw you post the other day that you met up with one of your instructors. So does that mean that you were a Humber College graduate?
No, that was from Second City.
Second City. Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you kind of made that decision to go full force into comedy, was it how many years out of Second City was that? Because you mentioned you published your first book in 2012, and I think that in the post you had said it was 2011 that you were with that teacher.
It was 2012. So
2012?
yeah, so I published the book. I've always kind of been a funny person, and I've always kind of used it in my business and everything I've always done has had some element of humor in it. So my advertising, my marketing, everything I did when I had a business was funny, and the book was funny. It was tongue in cheek on purpose. And that book, so it's the 14-year anniversary of that book just passed because I published it on 420. I remember clearly. I published it on 420. A lot of things are foggy from those years, but I remember the date of this book. I published it on 420, 2012, and I did a lot of marketing push behind that book, so it became a bestseller instantly. Like day one, I had pre-orders. I did everything right, and from that book, I started to get asked to speak at conferences. So they would fly me out to London, England, or fly me to different cities in the U.S. to do keynote speeches about self-publishing, about becoming a best-selling author, about running a business. And because I was doing a lot of public speaking, I thought, well, I should probably take a stand-up comedy class, because then I just get a little bit better at public speaking. I get a little bit better at making a joke while I'm doing it. And it was really just to benefit the public speaking. And so I went to Second City and I did their stand-up comedy level 1. And at the end of it, you have to write and perform a 5-minute set. I had never in my life done 5 minutes of just comedy for anybody. And so I did that, and it felt the feeling of doing that. I did a really good, I had a good set. I wrote a good set, everything went really well. And the feeling that I got from that was so infectious and so cool that I'm like, I kind of want to do this for the rest of my life. But it was, there was a lot to unravel, from then till now. And, I had a business, I was married to somebody who didn't want me to be a comedian. I had all these things I had to kind of blow up to get to this place where I am now. And so I kind of went through the process of changing my life from 2013 until, say 2019, where I, had to sell my business and get a divorce and do all these things to sort of set myself up to do this full time. And so I did all that, blew up my life basically, and sold off everything I was doing so that I could focus on this. And in 2019, that's when I shifted gears completely and put everything I had into comedy.
Wow. That's, it's, I always find it interesting with different comics, like backstories, right?
Yeah.
And what I think is really interesting about that is I have a very similar origin story to you, in that I was not necessarily thinking comedy was going to be the end result, but I was thinking I need to get better at performing and I need to get better at being comfortable in front of people. And so that was the easiest one to me because I was like, oh, it's free to do an open mic. And
Right.
then it was the same thing. That instant addiction. I was like, oh shit, I liked it when I got a laugh. I hated it when I didn't, and I want to make it as few times that I don't get a laugh as possible.
Yeah.
But so when the pandemic kind of rolled around, it was almost perfect timing for you then, in that you were in the right mind space and you had the right amount of like energy to throw into doing comedy full time. And I imagine because like I remember your videos on Omegle. I imagine that would have been the time for that, because I had forgotten about Omegle until the pandemic, and then everybody started using it again. And I was
Yeah.
like, I just remember being on Omegle like back in the day when I was young, and I'd be switching through videos, and all of a sudden someone would just show me their dick, and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's not what I was looking for,
Yeah.
as I'm
I still
currently
use it. I
13.
still use it to show my dick to people. So
Man, you got to start an OnlyFans. I feel like the Brad Gosse OnlyFans would
That's
go
the next
crazy.
step. That's the
Yeah.
next step.
yeah.
Um, so then kind of like shifting gears away from that and into stand up specifically, what like, I know that you were in Calgary last year. You were doing like a tour across Canada last year, and I was actually really bummed out because I didn't realize that you were in town until the day that you were in town.
Oh,
And it was a bummer because it was
the
during a
show was
night.
sold out. The show was sold out. So
I
yeah.
know, and but it was a bummer for me personally because, again, like I mentioned, at the tea house, the bartender there, she was the one who introduced me to you, and both of us were like, we were at tea house the day that your show was happening, and we were both like, "Fuck, we should have got tickets. We should have reached out." What's the next time that we can see you on tour in Western Canada?
I don't know. The thing is that it's I like to say that I'm a stay-at-home comedian because uh, I don't love touring. I d- I like performing in front of an audience. I love it, and I would do it every night if I could. But I don't like um, getting on a plane, staying in a hotel, being away from home, all of those things. So I'm not discounting it completely, but a tour for me, um, I'm a one man show. I'm self funded. I don't have a manager. I don't have a promoter. I don't have an agent. I don't have, I'm not signed with Yuck Yucks. I don't have any of the things that a lot of comics have. I'm self funded. I pay my own way to everything, and hope to make it profitable, or at least make it worth the exposure. I've done some U.S. tours as well, same kind of thing, out of pocket. Um, and the reality is, and I say this a lot, but it is true. I'm a businessman. This is a business for me. And even going to Toronto, which is only, 45 minutes from my house, I have to, get in my car, go find fight traffic, find a parking spot, pay for parking, go do a show in front of, maybe 50 people or 20 people or 6 people or 100 people. You know what I mean? You've done this. It's sometimes you go and they're like, well, we only sold 6 tickets, so you're performing for these 4 people. And if the other 2 show up, great, and you're just like, okay. And, so the payoff for live performances is very low for me as a business model, versus I could fire up my phone tonight with no warning, no pre-scheduling, no mailing my list, no nothing, and go live on TikTok for 30,000 people and sell a ton of books in the process, get thousands of followers out of that. The payoff for stand up is very low. I only do it because I love it. Like, I love it. I'm addicted to the audience. So I do it, but I only do it when it makes time and financial sense. And, you know, so going on tour is not at the top of my list unless somebody were to come to me and say, "Hey, Brad, we want to sponsor this. We want to manage this for you. We want to," like, if I have to be the chief ticket seller, the travel agent, the event planner, all of the things. It's just not, the payoff's not there. This is a long answer to your short question, but
No, it's a good answer though, because
yeah,
I feel like, because I'm in the same boat as you, where I'm not signed to Yuck Yucks. I don't have an agent or a manager or whatever. Like, I have an agent for acting, but that's, completely separate. If I asked her for
right.
any help with this, it would be completely pointless,
Yeah. She's gonna say, "Where's your self tape? That's all I want from you."
Legitimately, she'll be
Yeah.
like, is this going to be an actor contract? And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is live performance. No. But it is funny, because I think that a lot of people maybe don't necessarily understand that it isn't as financially lucrative as other art forms can be, and
Yeah.
and especially live performance. But I also think that there's something to be said for the doing it yourself is better in a way, because if the risk and the reward are pretty even keel, I generally think that's a lot better than going through a comedy club or whatever, because like you said, then you're worried about the showing up and there's 6 people and you're like, well, what the fuck, how am I how am I supposed to do this now? I'm doing an hour and a half for 6 people. But the flip side is, when you do it yourself, you have control of the promotion and stuff like that. And I feel like one thing that is really beneficial with something like what you do is that you are able to reach a large number of people. And so when you do those shows, you can be a little bit more picky about it, because you have the ability to look at the entire analytics of it and go, is it going to be
Yeah.
feasible for me to go to fucking Golden, BC,
Yeah. The money for me comes from book royalties, right? So
Mhm.
that's, the majority of my income is book sales and like tickets. Like, if I counted the money that I made from selling tickets at shows, it would be peanuts, and I would have given up on this business a long time ago. The books really do drive the revenue. Even like being monetized on YouTube and all that kind of stuff, any sponsorship deals that come in, they're so like, it's peanuts compared to what I get from book royalties. So if I didn't have the books, I would have probably quit the business. Because the the road to riches in stand up is basically, you're poor right up until you're a millionaire. And then
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like you go from, you know, opener in tiny little clubs to headliner who still doesn't make a lot of money, to, opening for a bigger comic in bigger venues and still not making any money. Like, openers eat shit. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
basically, like, I toured with a comic who was notoriously mean to his openers. He would make them fetch him things, and he was very, and I told him right up front, I'm like, look, I'm not your bitch. If I'm going on tour with you and I'm going out of pocket to do this, I'm not paying a penny for I'm not doing anything for you. Like, I'm not carrying your bags. I won't put anything in my suitcase for you. Like, he once asked me to carry his tripod, and I just said no. Like, I'm not your jockey.
Yeah.
Um, and so, there's a long road of eating shit as a comic until you are Bert Kreischer, or, and you're selling out stadiums. So for me, like, I'm happy to do that as kind of like to me, doing stand up in clubs is kind of a side hustle. It's part of what I do, and it helps me propel what I do, and it helps me to generate content. So I love the fact that I can go to a club, film the set, use the clips on social media to help me sell more books. All that makes a lot of financial sense, especially when I can drive to the gig. But the minute I have to get on a plane, and the other thing about me is, um, I'm kind of a like I'm a Nancy boy. So I like first class travel. I like, high thread count sheets. I'm not staying in the comedy condo. I'm not staying in a motel. The other comics will stay like, I opened for a guy and he was staying in these shitty places and I was staying at the Four Seasons. Like, I just, you know what I mean? I'm a pampered little bitch, and I need things to be exactly the way I want them. And, um, So the books have allowed me to be that way, and they've allowed me to be very like another comic friend of mine made a joke on stage one night, and everybody laughed, but he basically said Brad Gosse is the highest paid comic in Toronto, which is true. And he said he was the highest paid comic in Toronto the very first night he did stand up, because I was already making a lot of money with my books. So, it's like, I don't know. I don't know how this comes off, but I'm kind of a snob. Like I like things a certain way, and I'm not prepared to make. I'm a 50-year-old man. I'm not. I can't eat shit on the road. It's just I'm too old for that.
Yeah, no, and I completely respect that. I don't even think that's that snobby, because I mean, like you, I've opened for people that fucking sucked and were awful to me as an opener. And I opened for people that were fucking amazing to me as an opener. And
Yeah.
now that I'm a headliner, I go the extra mile to make sure that my openers have a fucking blast, because
Me too. Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want you to like go home from this gig and lose money. I'm like, you're already fucking not making a lot, and
Yeah.
I'm not even making a lot, and I'm the headliner. But I'm like, you're donating your time is basically what's happening, and I want to make sure that your time is compensated for. I had a really fun gig last weekend with a friend of mine, and she opened for me on the very first headlining show that I did, and I sold no fucking tickets. And it was one of those like, dude, I bombed. Everything about it was rough, but it was one of the most fun times, right? Because we were just like, we were in this shitty Airbnb, everything sucked. And in the past year since I've been headlining, now things have gotten better. My contracts have gotten better. The things that I'm asking for up front are a lot higher, but that also means that the venue is going to be more inclined to make the show the best that they possibly can, because they're invested in it, right? And we ended up showing up to Jasper, and we were our show was a part of the Pride. It was at this like really fancy resort though, and they initially in our contract we had 2 hotel rooms, and they upgraded us to 2 individual suites. And
Nice.
I just remember like she said to me at like right after the show, she's like, the fact that we went from doing a venue that was 6 people and we're staying in a shitty Airbnb to a year later we each have our own condo and it's a sold out show. She's like, this is why I want to open for you. And I was like, yeah, this is what I want to put out into the world, because things don't have to be shit. You don't have to ask your openers for fucking gas money,
Yeah. And you meet the same people on your way up the ladder as you do on your way back down.
Totally.
And it like there's some people see it as this like, permanent hierarchy. Like, I'm the headliner, you're the opener, you're always going to be beneath me. And I don't believe that to be true. I have met openers who are absolutely hilarious, and I think to myself, this person should already be headlining. And I know for a fact that there are people who have opened for me that may eclipse me. They may surpass me. They may be in a position to offer me something down the road. They may get some TV deal with Crave or some other, you know what I mean? There's lots of people who may appear to be, behind you, who then just leapfrog where you are. And if you're shitty to those people, they're not going to give you any opportunities later. But if you treat them with kindness and respect, which I've always done, I'm always like that with my openers, and I've never treated them like my bitches. And you know what I mean? I've actually done shows because I already have an income outside of doing stand up. I've done shows as a headliner where maybe less people showed up than we thought. And I just Justin Trudeau redistribute my wealth to all these people. Like, here, take my money, whatever I was going to get, I'm just going to split it equally among you. And, and I'm still out of pocket for gas and my dinner, because that's just how I want to. I don't want to be seen as taking advantage. And it's not even that I want to be seen. I don't want to treat anybody poorly. And I want to make sure that everybody gets treated well, because I feel like this is a business of friendships and opportunities. And if you're not fair and nice to the people that are working with you, when they have the opportunity to give you something, you're the last person on their list. But if you showed them kindness in a position where you didn't have to, or whatever, they're going to remember that. And so I've always tried to be as nice as I can to the people who are struggling or opening for me or whatever that looks like.
No, that makes sense. Well, I can't wait until the day that I get to open for you, because it sounds like you're a great guy to open for.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
definitely gonna make you get me water, so that'll be that.
oh yeah, no, I'll
Yeah.
I'll definitely get you water, and I
Only
will.
red M&Ms. Only red M&Ms.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I'm
I'll
gonna
be
David Lee Roth that shit.
I'm gonna be in the back with fucking tweezers, getting the M&Ms individually out of the bag, making
I
sure
love
that I
that.
don't touch them.
Yeah,
Foot
I love that.
massages, the whole works. I see how it is. I see
Yeah.
how it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, I find that that's like a general thing in life. I mean, I feel like that whole, like, even you coming on here, we're a small podcast. I mean, this is big for us, but like generally in life, that's a good way to treat people. I
Yeah.
mean, just, put your best foot forward, be nice to them. You'll get it in return some way, either from them or for someone else, right? It's a great
Absolutely.
attitude to have. So
The other thing I'm a stickler about, and I find it really weird that nobody else in this business is, or very few people in this business are, is I show up on time, and for me, on time is early. And I found that to be like, if you're a comic and you show up on time, you're instantly set apart. The producers are looking at you like, "What? You're here. Your show's not for another hour." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." Like, first of all, it's a long drive for me. I want to make sure I don't get stuck in traffic, so I'd rather be early. But I've discovered that by doing this, other opportunities come your way. So like, by being on time, you know, I became a headliner because I showed up on time. So I was opening. And then one night, and I have a lot of material. So if I'm an opener and I'm doing 7 minutes or 10 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it is that they give you, I could do an hour like that. Like, you can ask me to do an hour and I would, at the drop of a hat, will do an hour. And a lot of opener comics are like, "No, I can't. I've only got 5 minutes. That's all I got," and I'm practiced for 5 or 6. Maybe I could do 7, but it's going to be, me fumbling over crowd work or whatever. I can do more. And so I showed up early to a gig, um, and I'd done very few headlining gigs, but I showed up early to this gig, and they came up to me and they were like, "Look, you're supposed to go on right before the headliner, but the headliner hasn't shown up yet. They're late. Can you do more than the 10 minutes that we asked you to do?" And I was like, "How long you want me to go, bro?" And he looked at me like I was from outer space, and he said, "Could you do 20?" And I said, "I could do an hour. I could do 40. I'll do whatever you want. Just show me the light and I'll get off." He's like, "Okay." And so I went on. I ended up doing 40 minutes because the headliner just didn't show up, and I killed for the whole 40 minutes. And then the very next week, they were like, "Can you headline the same show?" I'm like, "Of course." And so, and it's this funny thing, right? Where like, when people see this poster of you as the headliner, then they just give you headlining gigs. It just shifts gears so quickly. So like, I think there's a lot to be said. Like, and this sounds so basic, right? But it's like, show up early, be respectful of people's time. It goes so far for you. It really will change your career. And you see all these comics who show up late or not at all. And you're like, you were on the poster and you didn't show. Like, what kind of, like, I couldn't imagine being on a poster and then not showing up, but they
Yeah.
do it all the time. And they have no problem with it. They're like, "Oh, a better show came along." Screw that. If I said yes to a show and a better show comes along, sorry, I'm already booked.
Well, and to go off of that too, like I agree. Like I've always shown up. I try to get there at the latest half hour before showtime.
Yeah.
Because I personally, it gives me anxiety to be late. Like
Me
I
too.
hate that feeling of like being rushed and then showing up and then having to gather my thoughts and be like, "Oh fuck, like how's the crowd been reacting to stuff?" Like simple shit like that you pick up on if you're there when the crowd is coming in. You can see how people are going to be. You can tell. The
100%.
other
Yeah.
thing that I would add to that is treating the staff well,
Oh,
because
yeah.
holy shit, dude. I had somebody that I booked for Tea House that I'm not gonna name, but like I booked them as a headliner.
Name names. Do it. Name names.
I'm not burning those bridges right now, but someone that I booked for a headlining show, they were doing really well, like in terms of their ticket sales and stuff. There was 2 shows there. And in between the 2 shows, first off, they were late showing up and they're headlining and it was their own show. And like, I'm like, okay, look, I don't care that you're producing this. It's my venue and you asked me to host and co-produce it. You fucking show up when I'm there, which is an hour and 20 minutes before the gig. Like, you're helping the staff
Yeah.
set shit up. And then in between the shows, we needed like a really quick turnover because this headliner ended up going over time because we started the show late. And then they started getting snappy and shitty towards the staff about what to like do for the turnover. And I personally didn't take that well because I'm like, this staff has been doing turnovers between shows for well over a year now. They know what they're doing. And so then the next time this person came through town, they asked to do Tea House, and I said no, and I didn't I wasn't rude about it, but I was just like, I don't think it's a good fit for the venue. I just don't think that I don't think that you can do it wherever you want, but just it's not going to be at my space where I've created a really good space between the comics and the audience and the staff. Everyone has a good relationship, and when you're rude to them, it just completely throws out all the work that I've done out the window. So
Agreed. Yeah.
All right. So every episode of Misfits on Vinyl, we review an album. Sometimes it's a very popular album. Sometimes it's an album that is one of our favorites. And when we have a guest on, we always give them the first right of refusal and we go, hey, pick an album. And the album that we are doing this week is Juicy J's 2013 album, Stay Trippy. What made you decide on this album?
Juicy J is my favorite rapper by far because I feel like he's a comedian.
Yes, I was gonna say
his music is funny. But it also has like it sounds amazing. I love, like, I could crank it up in my car. It gets me riled up before a show. And I just find his delivery so awesome. And when you asked me to pick an album, in 2024, we don't listen to albums. Like, when I was a kid, we'd buy a vinyl album, listen to it from start to finish, the B-sides, the whole thing, and nowadays it's like, it's very rare that you could find an album where you liked all the songs or most of the songs. And I wouldn't even say that I know every song on this album, but I know most of the songs on this album backwards and forwards. So it was easy for me to pick because A, he's a comedian in my book. B, his rap, his hip hop music hits hard, and I love that. But I just love that it's kind of all about, strippers and pussy and, bitches and money. And it's my style.
Yeah, I caught myself like laughing out loud at like probably I actually highlighted some lyrics. We'll read through them later, but there was probably like at least a dozen times I caught myself laughing out loud at some of the shit he was saying. And what I like too is like this album's from 2013, but he still sounds like a old school rapper. He stayed to Juicy J, right? He didn't change his sound, anything like that. Like the delivery is like an old school hip hop album. Yeah, it's fun to listen to. But yeah, I caught myself laughing like multiple times at some of the shit he says. It's so funny.
Yeah.
So out of pocket at times, right?
I love it. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny too because like it did, like you said, it does have that old school hip hop feel, but it's got such a fucking like it feels like that transitionary period in terms of beats, like it really has like a mid 2010 sounding beat, like which is amazing because it was mostly done in 2011 and 2012. Okay, so this is his third album as a solo artist. It was released August 27th, 2013. It was recorded between 2011 and 2013. And it had 3 labels behind it. It had Kimosabi, Columbia Records, and Taylor Gang. This was partially because he was distancing himself from 3-6 Mafia and he joined Taylor Gang Records. And he joined there as a part owner and an A&R representative, which I think is pretty impressive because that shows diversity in just the industry in general, which I always have respect for people that do that. But Wiz Khalifa makes 3 appearances on this album, as do some of the biggest artists of the 2010s. You have Nicki Minaj, Lil Wayne, Trey Songz, The Weeknd, Yellow Wolf, Chris Brown, and even Justin Timberlake is on a track, which, by the way, the Justin Timberlake track was fucking hilarious. That was one of those like really funny songs because you just have you have some of the funniest lyrics and then just this beautiful voice of an angel that comes in.
Yeah.
The other thing that I thought was really interesting, there was 18 producers on this album, including Wiz Khalifa and Juicy J. There was also Mike Will Made It, Supa Dupes, Circuit, Timbaland, and Dr. Luke, which that is an incredible fucking group of artists to have just behind the scenes even.
Yeah.
Oh shit, I went down too far. Okay, so the other thing that I thought was interesting about this, on March 7th, 2012, he stated that his album would be titled Stay Trippy, and he went on to say that he had recorded many of the songs with rap group Odd Future. In late November 2012, he announced that the album would be released in February and indicated that an interest in working with Nas, Dr. Dre, and Jay-Z. He also went on to state that the album was almost finished. Then he went on to state he had recorded 80 songs for the project, which were mostly recorded in hotel rooms while on tour. It's crazy that he went from 80 songs to I think it's 12 or 13 in the final. Like that's an insane number, and I would love to know what some of the deep cuts of that were.
I can only imagine what was on some of the songs he nixed. I can only imagine. Maybe Taylor Swift should take one out of his books and cut some songs down.
No shit.
A little bit of quality control would be nice, eh?
I feel like lawyers were involved in narrowing that down, where they're like, no, this song is a lawsuit. This song is a lawsuit. This is a diss track. You got to get rid of this, you know.
Well, it's like he has an entire song where he talks about what he puts lean in. He's like, I put lean in my Sprite, lean every night. I'm just like, it's
Dude.
so funny.
I don't think I know any rappers that sing more about lean than this guy. It is just like, you know, codeine in my cup, double cup, styrofoam. Like, it's just like every it's like, okay, we get it. You like codeine. We're here for it. Purple drink.
I also like that he talks in third person. He references himself in third person constantly.
You say no to ratchet pussy, Juicy J can't.
Yeah, that's one of the lines I quoted. Yeah, it's so funny. And he's like I can't remember what song it's on, but he's like, you say no to drugs, Juicy J can't. It's just like he's like, I'm an addict. Juicy J's an addict.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there. It's the best, man. The third person, he always talks about himself in third person.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's funny too, because like, you know, obviously he's had a huge history in hip hop. But this really does, like, it comes out of the gate feeling like a debut album in a lot of ways. And a big part of that is having full lyrical control in just the fucking wildest way.
Yeah.
Okay, so Complex ranked the album at number 22 on their 50 most anticipated albums of 2013. And prior to the release, he released a few mixtapes such as Rubber Band Business 1 and 2 and 2011's Blue Dream and Lean. Again, we're talking about a lot of lean here. He would go on to take his street team to cities like Atlanta and pass out the mixtapes, which, you know, I also have to say, I appreciate that straight up grassroots hustle of going to different cities and doing that, because you know, one of I think the most unappreciated hip hop groups of all time, the Insane Clown Posse. That is the entire reason that they are big, is because they went and they started handing out their mixtapes out of the back of their van in cities like Houston and shit like that.
Yep.
Which, you know, I think a lot of artists that do that have the most success, because when you're actually face to face with someone and you hand them your fucking vinyl or your tape, they're like, oh, I'm actually going to listen to this now and I'm going to give a shit about it. Fun fact about that is the other day was record store day, and while I was in line, I was just like going through a few of the bins that were like at the counter, and one of the I pulled out this bin of indie albums. And one of the guys that was in the line just went to his buddy and goes, hey, didn't you produce that album? And I pulled it out and I was like, oh, you mean this one? And it's this Japanese band that is an insanely cool fucking like punk band. But yeah, he did the like North American release of it, and he funded it himself. It comes with like a 16-page booklet in it, and the lyrics and everything, like the entire like the band is like, the music is amazing, the packaging is incredible, and I wouldn't have discovered that band if someone hadn't have been there who was just like, hey, I worked on that. And so now I've connected with the guy online and I'm like talking to him about the album because I'm like, this is so fucking random. Then I'm glad that you sent this to me. But that extra level of just seeing someone in person, like I wouldn't have spent $10 on that if I didn't, have someone there that said so. And
Right.
now I've found a new band that I like. So I appreciate the street hustle. I think that that's where it's at.
Yeah, I agree. I think anybody who is willing to go to that level to push out what they do, they believe in their work. They're not just phoning it in because the studio paid for the time or whatever. They're, they want it to be successful, and usually someone who wants it that badly, the creativity's on point.
Totally. I completely agree. Okay, so now the next before we get into the next section, I want to bring up Aaron's lyrics that he highlighted. You
Yeah,
should
let's do it.
read us a couple of these lyrics because I'm really interested to see which ones you picked out.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, let me just pull it up one sec. I picked out
I can't wait to see what you selected.
So I got this one that you already
Without
said,
dropping
but...
the N-word, this is going to be a lot of fun for
I had to cut a couple lines here, but bend it over, Juicy J gonna poke it like it's wet paint. You say no to ratchet pussy, Juicy J just can't. My swag belongs on the short bus. I don't know what he meant by that. Like, is his swag retarded? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. I like this one too. This is the thumbing through so much money that I need 3 hands to count it. I woke up in a Bugatti, parked it next to my Ferrari, took my Rolex and chopped it up and stuffed it in my Bugatti. I got your bitch on the Molly. She ride it like a Ducati. If given head was a college, she would be summa cum laude. It's a really good line. Really good line. I got a gold-plated toilet. I'm rich as shit. Another one I liked.
That's so simple and so good.
This one's got layers. I'm in the new Bentley truck and I'm whipping it like a runaway slave. That one was so out of pocket. So out of pocket. I had to pause and rewind to make sure he actually said that. And then Wiz Khalifa, I quoted him on one. Smoking on this potent, feeling like I'm floating, looking like I'm Chinese, my eyes are barely open. That was also quite good. And then the last one I have,
that's full on black and yellow.
Yeah. The last one I have is bring your passport, we making love in Persia on a Persian rug. Those are my picks of my favorite lines off the album. It's quite funny. So those are the ones I had to stop and actually pull up to laugh at. So,
holy shit, that's funny.
I did a good job.
You know what? Like, I really gotta say that's something that I've noticed a lot of is missing in a lot of newer hip hop is that element of humor that I think that old school hip hop just fucking nailed perfectly.
Yeah, there's the tongue in cheek part is certainly missing, and that's one thing I was thinking too when I was listening to it. Like, yeah, this album came out in 2013. Like, tons of huge albums came out in 2013 in hip hop, like Yeezus, stuff like that. Big albums for these big artists, and none of it has that sort of cadence and tongue in cheek that this one does. So
yeah, I feel like a lot of these could be children's books.
100%. 100%. My daddy's got pink in his cup.
Oh my God.
Before my bedtime story, Daddy makes me drink his Sprite. Okay, so Juicy J's full legal name, this is about the artist. His full legal name is Jordan Michael Houston III. He was born on April 5th, 1975 in Memphis, Tennessee. And as a teenager, he wrote a bunch of books and essays on the music industry, learning about marketing, publishing, and royalties. He looked up to fellow Tennessee artist Al Bell, who is co-owner of Stax Records. When he wrote the lyrics for the 1999 3-6 Mafia track Slob on My Knob in 11th grade at Northside High School. In 1991, he was the co-founder of the Southern hip-hop group known as 3-6 Mafia, along with DJ Paul and Lord Infamous, rappers Crunchy Black, Gangsta Boo, and Koopsta... That's too close. I can't say it.
Do it.
Nice. There we go. I'm just gonna fucking butcher it intentionally this time.
Hoopsta Nista?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
I thought it was gonna be something else, and I just, if I read that too quickly, it would have gotten this for sure. No, I would have had to edit that out. Alongside DJ Paul, Juicy J has launched Profit Entertainment in 1994, and they left their label to their business partner Nick Scarfu Jackson, and subsequently launched Hypnotize Media. In 1995, the group released their first official album called Mystic Styles. Since then, the group has released 8 albums. On July 2nd, 2002, he released his solo debut album, Chronicles of the Juice Man, under North Records. In 2006, along with DJ Paul, Crunchy Black, and Frasier Boy, they won an Academy Award for Best Original Song for It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp at the 78th Academy Awards. And
Nice.
On June 16th, 2009, his second studio album, Hustle Till I Die, was released under Hypnotize and Select O Hits. God damn. Dude's had a crazy career. Also in that time, he was in Jackass #2, so that's pretty wild. Jackass #2 and Wild Boys, because they filmed a lot of that stuff at the same time. There was the scene in Jackass #2 where Dave England and Chris Pontius eat the horse shit, I think it was. And Juicy J starts throwing cash at them for eating horse shit. All right, so some notable tracks on the album. The first single was Bands Make Her Dance, which was released on September 11th, 2012. The single features 2 Chainz and Lil Wayne, and it was created in a hotel room in Washington, D.C. It peaked at number 29 on the US Billboard Hot 100, and the music video premiered on MTV Jams on September 23rd, 2012. Several publications, including the Washington Post and Complex Magazine, included the song among their top 10 songs of 2012, and it has been certified platinum by the RIAA for sales of over 1 million copies, which is pretty impressive because this is right on the cusp of when streaming is about to pop off. So it was kind of perfect timing. I wonder what that number would be if streaming had been the forefront of music at the time and it wasn't iTunes singles, you know?
Yeah.
This was the main song I was familiar with off this album. I think this is the biggest song on the album, right? That was the one I had heard previously. Even when I was like, I would have been like 13 or 14 then. I was bumping this back then, so I knew this one, but the rest of the album I was unfamiliar with. So
I remember the first time I heard this, I was on 2CI. Which is, for those of you that don't know, it's a terrible drug. Don't fucking do it. But I did 2CI and then went to a house party and they were playing this. And I just remember I was coming up and I was like, this is not the time to be listening to new music that I'm unfamiliar with.
What kind of white people drugs are you taking? I've never even heard. Is that a Calgary thing? I've never even heard of 2CI.
I've never heard of it either. Dude, this is in Buttfuck Norris, Saskatchewan, too. Why the fuck were
are you taking
2CI?
pills from your mom's medicine cabinet? Like, what's going on here?
Dude, the wildest part about this was like the summer of like before I went into grade 12. And it was my friend had got the drugs from his dealer because, you know, this was when weed was not legal. So dealers were a thing. I'm not going to name his name because he works in law now. And I feel like that might be kind of shitty to
name the name.
Name names.
But he got it. And when I asked him what the drug was like, because I had never heard of it, he was like, oh, it's like ecstasy. And I was like, I've never done ecstasy, but I feel like that's probably a good time. And it was nothing like ecstasy. It was like PCP. And so I had a very not good time because
why the fuck were you getting designer drugs in a town of 30 people in fucking nowhere, Saskatchewan?
I feel like it was designed by the guy who sold it to you. And nobody else has ever had this drug before.
Yeah, he just like fucking.
It's called 2CI, man. You're gonna love it. It's just meth.
Dude,
mixed with like floor dust.
This was something that like Kanye was doing around this time. Like this was
he was doing 2CB.
He was doing 2CB, which was an auditory hallucinogen, whereas this was an everything hallucinogen. And wow, did I not have a good time because I was not prepared. And the worst part is like we took it in a park and we were like hanging out, looking at the stars, drinking a case of beer, and like that was fine. And then my buddy who was like trip sitting us, who was not fucking good at it, was like, let's go to this house party with a bunch of rednecks because that'll be fun. And then we went in and my friend was out laying on the grass because he was having a much better time than I was. And then he just went home because he was like, I think that it'll be better if I just go and lay in bed. And I was having a pretty good time at the party until my other friend who was trip sitting us ran into the house and went, I don't know where he went, but they're both on drugs. What the fuck? Keep an eye on him. I need to go find the other guy. And like, then everybody turned and fucking stared at me and they're like, oh, are you on drugs? Are you not having a good time? And like, yeah, that just set me off into having a not good time. At one point, I looked at a girl's boobs and they went, whoop, whoop. And I went, that's not fucking good. Because then they started talking and moving when she was talking. So that was weird. Anyways.
That was a whole aside. Yeah, well, so you heard Juicy J for the first time on this drug no one's ever heard of.
Yeah, dude.
That's the moral of the story.
That is the moral of the story. And fuck me, I shouldn't have. That was a big aside. Sorry about that, folks.
That's
that are
okay.
listening.
I want to know more about 2CI, so I'm glad you went down the rabbit hole.
Next time I'll take 2CI and do the podcast. We'll see how that goes. Dude. Yeah.
All of my drug experiences before the age of 18 made me not want to do hard drugs because I was just I also went to the hospital with a broken femur and they shot me full of ketamine. And I just fucking K-holed hard and did not. I was like, I never want to do hallucinogens again. Like at one point I looked at my mom and her tongue rolled out of her face and a car drove down it. And I was like, that's not good. So yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised that I was able to still handle my shit.
Yeah, I would stay away from any drug that starts with a number. I think that's like I think that's like a golden rule. Like anything that starts with a number is probably, a no go.
That seems like a safe motto to live by. Just,
yeah, like as Juicy J put it, only thing that touches my lighter is what, green or whatever he said is Kush. Only thing that touches my cup is alcohol.
It's that primo hit Kush, I believe is the exact lyric.
The only thing that touches my lighter. So yeah, stay away from the numbered stuff, kids.
Except for Tylenol 3.
Tylenol 3, yeah. Take those but it doesn't start with a number. That's the thing.
It finishes with a number.
Yeah. Super Saiyan Tylenol.
I was also offered 25C, which if you don't know what that is, it's the
no one knows what the fuck that is. What are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? 25C. No one knows what the fuck that is.
Dude, you could only take like a micro fraction of a gram. It's like fentanyl, but like LSD version fentanyl. And if you take over that small amount, you just fucking die. And all my friends were doing it in high school, and I was like, I don't want to do that. Like I don't trust any of you to get this right, like at all.
This is what happens when you live in towns that are far from the border. Is you just don't get good drugs. You get shitty, weird drugs.
That's the most fucked up part. We were a 40-minute drive from the American border. Like we should have.
Yeah, but the Iowa border, not the regular border.
Yeah, like you're fucking, what type of
you're still landlocked. Wyoming? You're not getting anything good when you're landlocked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair.
That you're getting that Montana 2CI 25B X5 24.
Yeah,
like you were taking drugs like Elon Musk would name his kids, dude. Like the fucking shit you're taking is fucking. Anyways,
it's all crushed up mom drugs. It's not. Yeah.
You were just taking baby laxatives. You didn't even fucking know it.
I was tripping so hard.
That fucking Johnson & Johnson got me going crazy, dude. Now I have cervical cancer. Look at that.
Yeah.
Dude, maybe that's why it was so hard for COVID to get me. Because I took so many fucking random drugs in my youth.
it got into you and it turned around and it went away. It was like, fuck this.
Dude, I was the first person the virus looked at and went, oh God, no, this isn't good. What have I caught?
No, we go back to Wuhan. Not this guy.
All right, so reception of the album. We're gonna get into that this last bit before we review it. The album debuted at number 4 on the US Billboard 200 chart. Its first week sales were 64,000 copies, In its second week, it dropped 11 spots on the charts down to 15th. It sold 22,000 copies that week, though. And in its third week, it sold another 13,000 more. As of November 2013, the album had sold 138,000 copies, which is pretty impressive. In Canada, it debuted at number 11. When it comes to ratings, though, it was kind of all over the place, which is a little surprising. Metacritic, it sits at a 66 out of 100. Rolling Stone gave it 3 out of 5 stars. XXL gave it 4 out of 5. Now gave it 2 N's out of 5. And USA Today gave it 7.5 out of 10. Chris Kelly of Fact said, by embracing the codeine, weed, Molly trifecta, #friendly hooks, and perhaps more significantly, ascendant producers, the 38-year-old rapper has maintained rap relevance, even as that has become more difficult than ever. Now, to contradict that, Julia LeConte of Now said, the whole thing isn't about disrespecting women. Though some tracks merely weave misogyny through simple pleasure narratives, popping Molly, making money, on his third solo record, the 3-6 Mafia rapper is getting high like he's 18. At 38, though, it's not super amusing, like Jay is the hip-hop Peter Pan refusing to grow up among a crew of young MCs. Which, all right.
Famous feminist Juicy J.
Yeah.
That's why I listen to it. That's why I listen to his music. He's, Juicy J. Yeah. Hip hop in general, known for its feminism.
Yeah, dude. He's a part of the famous 5, dude.
Yeah, that's why I turn it on. I listen to it for its positive message about women.
Also, can we just let it go with rap artists? I feel like that's just a part of the art form, dude. You gotta just you get what you get. Come on now, fucking chill out, people. Reviewers suck. What a bunch of asshole critics are. Am I right, guys?
Yep.
As we're about to critique the album. All right, so. Every episode on Misfits on Vinyl, we rate the album out of a few elements. We go out of technical, musical, lyrical, album art, reception, and does it hold up? We rate all of these out of 10, and then we average it out at the end. Now, to start things off, on the technical rating, I think that, first off, this is one of the best that we've rated in terms of how this has been produced, how it's been mixed. It's layered really well. I don't feel like there's any time where the vocals really get they're kind of perfectly mixed in my honest opinion. I would also say that it's pretty unique in terms of its era, because it's right in that cusp of where old school hip hop had found that transition into club hip hop, and it's just before it goes into trap being the mainstream thing. So I would say that technically I'm going to rate it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I don't know how you could rate it low, because it's got a who's who of, producers on the list of, the past 20 years. I feel like it'd be difficult to give it a low rating. It doesn't, there's not really a lot of missteps in sonically how it sounds. There was one point in one song where it slowed down out of nowhere kind of weirdly, but other than that, I really have no criticism of the technical elements of the album. I'd probably put it at an 8.5.
And what about you, Brad?
Oh, it's a 10 for me. That's why I picked it.
Hell yeah. Okay. So that means that right now we're at a 9.25. Now the musical element, I kind of touched on it with when we were talking about the technical aspect, but it is in that transitionary period where you can hear elements of two different eras of rap really shining through. So for that reason, I'm going to 9 again on this one.
Yeah, I would probably come close to agreeing. I feel like at the time too, a lot of hip hop was super experimental compared to what this album does. Like I said before, he kind of sticks to what he knows and what he does best. So I'm gonna go at it 8.5 again.
What are we rating this on? What's this rating for again?
This is the musical element. So
okay,
how it sounds, not necessarily lyrics or the production, but in terms of how complicated the beats are, how unique they are, how original they are.
Yeah, I'll give it an 8.5 for that.
8.5. All right. So now we are at currently we're at a 9 out of 10. All right. Now lyrically, This guy is fucking really funny, and it's not like he's taking anything super serious, which I think is something that a lot of times we don't get with the albums that we review. A lot of times it's, lyrics are at the forefront of being the most serious thing, and it's got to have a heavy message behind it. He's having fun, and he's doing something lyrically that I think is really interesting. I think his rhyme scheme is really funny in moments. He picks really fucking interesting things to jump off of in the middle of his verse to rhyme on. So I'm probably gonna go an 8.5 on this one out of 10.
Yeah, I think lyrically, like we said before, like it's not storytelling. It's not, poetry per se. It's just really fucking funny. And his hooks are catchy. Like, I mean, his hooks are so simple, but they're so catchy. He repeats the same line 15 times, then into the verse. It's to the point, it's straightforward. Like I'm gonna go a 9 on it lyrically. Like I said, there's very few times I've listened to a hip-hop album recently where I've actually sat down and laughed out loud and had to be like, did he just fucking say that? So it's gotta be a 9 for me.
It's a 10 for me on the lyrics. And for me, it's like I really look at this and I think to myself, this is like, there's so many rap songs where they just talk about their things. I got Gucci in this, and I got the, and they're just name dropping brands, and it's like it's braggadocious with no humor. And I just love how everything is so sort of, there's like a reason for why he has all these things, you know what I mean? And so like I think the lyrics are a 10. I mean, to me, this kind of music is 100% about the lyrics. So for me, it's a 10.
That makes sense. I agree with all of that.
Yeah,
Now
he does justify, like when he does say, I have a private jet with a golden toilet. Why? Because I'm rich as shit. He justifies
Yeah,
why
exactly.
he has it.
Yeah.
He explains it to you. It's why? Because I can.
Yeah.
Why not?
100%.
Why not? Yeah.
100%.
No, I completely agree. Now, album art. Now, this one's interesting because I had not actually seen the album art until you recommended this album to us. I had heard the album. I had heard a lot of the tracks from the album, obviously over the years, but I hadn't actually seen the album art. I think that it's interesting because he looks, first of all, just genuinely happy and kind of silly on the album, which is the tone of the album. It's not this doom and gloom kind of fucking attitude. There's not this vibe of anything but like silliness, and he does it so perfectly. So I don't know. For the album art, I'm gonna say probably a 7 out of 10 because it's not like it's something that I'd look at and immediately be like, that stands out to me. But after listening to the album, I go, oh shit, I get why that's the album art.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're kind of right. He is a little bit silly on the cover, but it's also very like extravagant, which also kind of suits his personality as well. But I mean, like in hip hop in general, like album art usually isn't the biggest thing in the world. There's some iconic hip hop album covers, but I would probably like it suits the album, so I'll go a 7 on it as well. I mean, it does suit the tone of the album. It's not anything spectacular, but
Yeah, I would
the theme.
I'd give it a 7 as well. I feel like I mean, album art became an afterthought the minute we started doing streaming, and I know that when this came out, I was buying streaming at the time. I was paying iTunes for streaming, and the album art really was an afterthought. And I like that he's kind of like, what the fuck? He's got the champagne in one hand. He's got the girl on the floor. The carpets matches his suit. And I kind of like his like bravado and his attitude in it. But I'd probably give it like a 7.5.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. All right,
And
now
like mostly that category I think really applies to like when we do like iconic albums. Like we've come into it, like we do a lot of Canadian artists, we do a lot of indie albums, stuff like that as well. But like when we go back, you do a Rumors, you do a Born in the USA, whatever you decide to do. Like those are the albums where the cover actually means something compared to a lot of the stuff we end up talking about as well, right? So
no, totally. And I do find it's interesting though, because like once in a while you'll see that artist who doesn't have it as an afterthought, and then you're like, oh, that's just that one little bit of extra effort that really makes this stand out as a complete project, you know?
Yeah.
All right, so reception. It's kind of interesting because it's oddly mixed from a critical standpoint, and commercially, like I think it did. I mean, it had a platinum single on the album. It did really well. Debuting at number 4 is fucking great. Especially during that time, like there was a lot of, like Aaron mentioned, there's a lot of hip hop albums specifically that came out that year that blew up and kind of fucking blew it out of the water, unfortunately. But I would have to say, like, based on the reception and everything, I'd probably go an 8 on it because I think commercially it kind of pushes the critical aside a little bit.
Like for me, besides him being like a little bit misogynistic, like overall, I think the reception is, for me I'd say it's a mid for me. Like, I mean, commercially it did pretty well. It's mixed by critics, which often these albums are. I think a 7 is a fair rating for that reception wise.
I don't have a lot to say about the reception, just because I didn't really pay attention to it, and I still haven't really. So I mean, I guess I'll come in at an 8 there, but that's just kind of a throwaway number.
All right, and now the final question is: does it hold up? I'd say yes.
100%.
Yeah,
all
we're
right,
still talking about it.
So the final rating, 8.75 out of 10. I feel like that's a pretty good fucking rating. Keep in mind, we gave Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA a 7.5 out of 10. So we've had to really, really adjust moving forward from that. That was our very first episode, and ever since then we've went, okay, how does it stack up? But 8.75 out of 10, I think that's a pretty good rating for it. Before we get out of here, Brad, is there anything, like, what can we expect next from you? Do you have a new book coming out? Do you have any shows coming up? Where can people find you online?
I am going to be opening for Juicy J and Cardi B.
Hell yeah!
And reading pimp children's books to daycare centers around the world.
In drag, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I actually have done that. I dressed up in drag for Halloween, and I read some of my books, and I just triggered so many people. So many people. They're just like, "You get out of our schools, you monster!" And I'm just like in my basement, What do you mean? I am about to launch a Kickstarter, and basically it's 101 of my best-selling books as a compendium in one hardcover. And the title for the book is called, I'm going to pronounce this clearly, it's Bukkake. And because it's just so many books and it's in your face. So that's the idea behind it. Is basically it's a compilation of 100 of my best-selling books, or 101 of my best-selling books. And hopefully it's going to be out in the next week or so. I'm still going through approvals with Kickstarter, and they do not love, they're a bit woke. So we'll see if they accept it. If they don't, I'll pre-launch it on Shopify or another platform, but I'm hoping that it'll be on Kickstarter. But if you're on my mailing list, or you follow me on any of the platforms, I will be promoting the shit out of it to the point where you're going to be sick of me promoting it. So if you follow me anywhere, you'll know where to find it when it's ready. But it's a hardcover. It'll be ready for Christmas. I'm doing pre-orders on it because I want to make sure, basically what I want to do is I don't want to do the Amazon printing for this until it's done. But I want to do, because I want to print it on like a high quality printer press. I want, the best binding, the best 100-pound stock paper, all the stuff I want, kind of like, I want it to be treated like a Marvel graphic novel, not like a self-published hardcover. So I'm doing my own, I got my own printer to do it and all this kind of stuff, not my own actual printer, but printing house that I'm working with. And it's a big launch for me. So, basically anybody who has like one or two of my books, but wants to have access to like a whole bunch of them, this would be the place to get it, because you can get it all, my 101 best-selling books of all time in one compendium, giant thick ass hardcover.
Hell yeah. Well, I'm definitely going to buy that when you launch it. But also we'll share the hell out of it on all of our social medias so that the people see the Kickstarter. Because that honestly, I love your books, and I love seeing the amount of work that you've put into everything over the years, and yeah, you've earned it. You've earned it. So
Thank you.
yeah. With that being said, the only thing that I have to plug right now, my special taping. It's going down in Calgary, May 12th at Ranchman's. I have an absolutely stacked lineup of openers. I have Gabby Rose, Faris Haitia, Amol Suri, Brittany Lysing, and Dale Ward. It's going to be a crap load of fun. The special is going to be called Cowboy Number 2. So if you want to come out and wear some Western flair, get that pre-stampede in you, please do. It's going to be, filming it.
Where
and
will we see the taping for this? Like, is it going to be YouTube, or where are you putting it?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw it up on YouTube. I'm gonna throw up the censored version on YouTube, and the uncensored version is going to be the album on Spotify and iTunes and all of that stuff. So if people want to hear me say the actual words of killing myself instead of the dubbed over unaliving,
if you want to hear all the N words, you gotta listen to it on Spotify.
Yeah, dude, I got
all the racial slurs will be up on Spotify.
I got all the N words in there. I got nectar, I got Nicorette, I got Noose, I got everything.
Nicholas, please.
Nicholas, please.
Nicaragua.
Yeah, Nicaragua.
This one's for my neighbors. Okay. All right. With that being said, thank you so much again, Brad, for coming on. This has been a lot of fun. And we have been Misfits on Vinyl. And until next time, anal contusions.